World War II, the German army used strategically placed tank divisions to pierce enemy front lines, allowing for neighbouring infantry divisions to flood in and conquer a great many territories very, very quickly. But the thing is, I have a question. How effective would the German army be if it was only made up of tank divisions? No infantry divisions, no artillery divisions, just tanks. Well, today is the day that I answer that question, as today I attempted to conquer the entirety of Europe while only using tanks. I hope you enjoy, and I hope to see you in all my future videos as well. As you could possibly expect, the first order of business was to delete my current army. Then, as usual, I began to both industrialise and research new technologies. Again, I won't go into much detail as to what I'm researching because, well, it's pretty obvious what I'm going to be researching. All you need to know is that it's industry-based and radio-based at the moment. I did, however, go down a different economic focus tree this time around, and I chose to prioritise economic growth. I didn't really want to do the 4-year plan this time around because I was quite scared that I was going to get stuck in a stalemate or a gridlock or something like that, and then I wouldn't be able to construct anything because of the MIFO bills. So I thought, okay, let's play it safe this time around and prioritise our economic growth and do the easy path for Germany. In terms of strategy for this game, the current plan is that I'm going to put my light tanks on the front line to act as infantry, even though they're actually tanks, and then I was going to use heavy tanks as my shock troops that will pierce the enemy lines, allowing me to rush in and capitulate them. You may be thinking that, hang on a minute Hermit, heavy tanks are actually really expensive, how are you going to get enough of them? Well, when you hyper specialise your industry into only producing tanks, you actually end up with them being really cheap to make, because if every factory is making tanks, then they're going to get done at a really fast rate anyway, no matter how expensive they are. I should have said this earlier, but I also made sure to build plenty of oil refineries so that the very limited amount of oil I was getting from my very limited amount of trade partners was used as efficiently as possible in times of war, because when you use only tanks in this game, and you say press the battle plan button, if all of those tanks are fighting at once, your oil requirements are going to be around 30,000. It was now time to see just how effective tanks were against Poland, and I'll be honest, I struggled. The only reason I struggled though was because of a lack of light tanks, because I had tried to rush this attack because I didn't want to be doing too much preparation for too many years. But since I rushed so much, I didn't have enough tanks on the front line, so I couldn't cover my front lines, and since I'd also tried to battle plan everything, my frontline tanks had run out of organisation, leading to me getting pushed back quite a bit, and the loss of Königsberg. Thankfully, however, I did in fact manage to evacuate all of the tanks, and now, with an extra thick front line, I could push back and encircle the overextended Polish divisions, completely crippling their offensive push. What's more, now that I had some momentum behind my pushes, I was able to steamroll Poland and cause their capitulation. I am going to be honest with you, I thought the run was lost when I was first getting pushed by Poland, so the fact I was eventually able to capitulate them and, figure out how to actually use tanks effectively, I was filled with joy, bro. Because I thought, oh man, I've just wasted an hour and a half of my life. And then with the peace deal, I just puppeted them, because, well, firstly, I didn't want to garrison them, because I thought, oh, that's just going to be a waste of manpower, and secondly, I was quite scared of the Russians. I don't know what they're called now, because they've just, been in a civil war. But yeah, I was quite scared of them, and I wanted to ensure that I had a nice thick buffer state in between me and them. I also did accidentally create the state of Silesia. I didn't mean to. I intended to give it to Poland, but I just misclicked and then bang, Silesia now exists. I was still in a bit of a bloodthirsty mood after Poland, so I also chose to do the side quest of subjugating the Baltics. With the peace deals for these guys, it was the same as Poland. I just puppeted them because, while I could annex them, I feel like I would get more resources and, more divisions out of just puppeting them instead. I think it's just easier to puppet than annex as an overall thing. Although I must say, I think my least favourite Baltic nation to try and invade has to be Estonia, because, right, hear me out, Estonia just doesn't have supply, okay? And that might be fine for infantry, but when you're Germany, you certainly use a lot of tanks, you use motorised infantry, you use the whole thing, and they need lots of supply as individual units. So when you try and rock up to Estonia, which has rubbish supply all the time, it just really halts your offensive line, and it's so annoying. Thankfully though, I did eventually capitulate them, and then I now am in possession of 5 puppets, including Silesia, and that hopefully covers my entire Russian front line. So I can declare on Russia through my ally Romania, and attack through Romania, whilst keeping the vast majority of my line protected, whilst the Russians are spending loads of divisions covering that front line. Now that the eastern borders were cleaned up, I turned my attention south to Italy. This entire save, Italy has been very aggressive to its neighbours, and it was now losing to the French Commune due to overextending into Yugoslavia. Since I already had the communist superpower of Russia in my east, and the UK was communist in the west, I really did not want to deal with a third communist superpower known as the French. So I chose to declare on Italy to steal as much war score away from France to prevent them from getting any stronger. And obviously, because I'm using only tanks, I absolutely steamrolled the Italians, who were overextended already, formed the Regno del Sud, and took all of the French lands away from France. My buffer states were now looking beautiful, but the best way to test how beautiful and strong they are is to obviously go to war with Yugoslavia. Now, that is a joke. I'm actually going to go to war with Russia, but Yugoslavia is just it's their ally, it's just someone we're going to need to get rid of eventually. But yes, we're going to war with Yugoslavia and Russia to test how good and strong we've become. So the current teams was Russia, Yugoslavia and the UK against me, my allies and my puppets. Surprisingly, the French Commune, who is communist, actually joined my side in the fight. Why? No idea. I'm thankful they did though, because garrisoning the Maginot would have just been a waste of 24 tanks. As to the war itself, there is really nothing to say about the battles that happened in Yugoslavia. I mean, it's Yugoslavia, I'm Germany, who's fairly developed with loads of puppets. They were really easy. I just battle planned them, I steamrolled them, and life was looking good. At least in the Balkans they were for now. The reason I said for now is because of this. I got greedy and declared on Greece. Greece obviously then joined the Comintern, and that was fine because I was wrecking Greece. I pushed them all the way to Athens. But the thing is, I didn't actually pay much attention to this front line, so in the near future there's going to be, let's just say, a fair few naval invasions, which is going to cut me off from my troops and the loss of at least 6 heavy tanks, which really sucks. Now that the Greeks had momentarily been beaten back, it was time to deal with the Russians on the Romanian border. And I'm going to be honest with you, the supply in this area was terrible. There was 2 large armies, both on either side of the border, both trying to kill each other, so of course things weren't looking good. I, however, had the benefit of a river. Technically they also had the benefit of a river, but I was playing defensive for now, because the Russians are huge, but their industry isn't actually large enough to sustain a prolonged battle with an army of their size. So all I had to do was have some early wins, and then just wear them down through the attrition, because I know that the AI is just going to throw their troops at me senselessly. Back in Greece, however, an eye had been naval invaded, and had been pushed all the way back up to Yugoslavia. This wasn't looking good. As I said before, I lose these 6 heavy tanks, which really hurts because they're not exactly cheap, even though in the intro I said, hyper specialised industry, it still hurts to lose that many tanks. However, thankfully, they didn't actually push me any further up through Yugoslavia. I was able to hold this line, and eventually, as they weakened, I was able to push them all the way back down and eventually cause their capitulation for the 2nd time. Although, since I was relying on attrition, this wasn't going to happen for any time soon. Moving back up to the Russians after a couple of months, and they have begun to falter. Since I wasn't destroying any of their divisions, they still had to sustain their huge army, so I was basically just pushing against paper. They were no longer the concrete wall that they normally are, so I could do fairly large and deep cuts into their territory, and then eventually I was just able to battle plan the entire thing, which I was very surprised about, by the way. Normally battle plans cost you millions of men and millions of equipment lost, but this one was actually really forgiving. I only lost about 500,000 and barely lost any of equipment, which was really surprising. Now this is normally the point where I say, this is the peace deal, I took everything, but no, because the UK was communist and in the Comintern. I hadn't beaten the UK yet, so unfortunately I couldn't actually claim any of the Russian territories that we'd just taken in the peace deal. And I'll be honest, that's really annoying for me, because I've just taken out the entirety of Russia. But the Romanians get all the good bits. And it's like, yes, okay, we were fighting on Romanian soil for most of this, but it was my units, my tanks that did the heavy lifting. I'm the one who got the casualties, yet at the moment I don't get any of the benefits of all the industry that Russia has, because, well, as you can see, Romania owns all of it. So that's just a little gripe I've got. It was now time to beat the UK up. At least, that's what you thought I was going to say, because this is a tank-only run. So that means I don't have any access to fighters or naval bombers. I do have access to a navy, but navies take ages to build up and mine is very small, compared to the UK's very large one. So that basically meant trying to do this naval invasion was going to take at least 5 years of ramping up my navy's production, which means I'm going to need to build the ports, which takes ages, and then build the ships, which takes ages. All the while the UK would be doing the exact same thing. So I don't think I would ever be able to outproduce their navy, because I can't actually weaken their navy with naval bombers, because it's tank only. So this means that I wasn't actually able to capitulate the UK, which means technically this war never ended, even though I did beat up the Russians, so I'm calling it a win in my books. Also, if you want to see me actually beat the UK, then stick around for the next video, which is going to come out maximum a week. That's max. It could come out sooner, if I'm feeling like it. But I do actually beat the UK in that, which is like something that I rarely ever succeed in doing. Anyway, I'm going to have to call it there for this video because I'm drastically running out of time to edit it. I recorded this ages ago, I did it in like 2 days. Editing it has taken a little longer. I've had the busiest week of my life. Anyway, I'm calling it there for now. I hope you all enjoyed and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Bye guys.